Okay, so hello and welcome to WPF's second coach interview. And today I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with Lime. So, Lime, you want to do the honors and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Deranged Lamb. You may or may not have heard of me. I'm a coach in the WPF and a moderator as of recently. And it's been a good time so far. I'm really enjoying myself here.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. And generally, that's the perception that we get here, and that's the reaction that we get. So that's good. And I'm really happy that we got, I don't know if fresh faces is the right word, but we got up and common faces. So, but you're everybody in the community knows you, so I don't know if it
Yeah,
would
I'm
be right to call
surprised
you.
on how I'm surprised on how quickly popular I got for some reason. I did not expect like a couple seasons in a row to be super high on the fantasy, but here we are.
So, do you think that gives you like added pressure to like perform? Or like do you feel the
At
pressure?
At first, it did. At first, I'm like, right, I've got to not lose because if I lose now, they're gonna lose. But at some point, I just thought, no, I'm just gonna play how I play. If people want to be mad at me if I'm losing, then so be it. But I doubt many people are, and they'll just keep cheering me on regardless. So I don't really feel the pressure anymore. I tend not to try and get myself stressed and worried in general. I think it's just a big waste of time and energy. I'm just here to have a good time and play some mons. That's
Love to
all there
hear
is
it.
to it, really.
Honestly, like I could take a page out of your book and get some positivity gaming going. So I love to hear that. So
Yeah, we're all about positivity.
that's the name of the game. If we're not having fun, then why are we even doing this, right? So
Exactly.
I guess not the smoothest of transitions, but I do want to ask, maybe it's the power of fruits, but that got you so popular. But why is your alias, for lack of a better word, why do you go by Lime? Is there a story behind that?
uh, it's kind of a silly story. Basically, it was back in the Xbox days. I was friends with a bunch of people and they decided, hey, let's make a clan. And someone decided to make it the Deranged Fruit Clan. So everyone came up with their names. I chose Deranged Lime. And in true clan fashion, as you make when you're in your early teens, it
Yep.
fell apart pretty fast. But they all changed their names and I kept mine. And that's just how I've been known as since. It's
You're
been going on for about 12 to 13 years now.
wow. There's a long history behind that name, the deranged lime.
Yeah, and the name has never been competed. I've always managed to get it no matter where I go, so clearly it's a unique name.
That's awesome, actually. I didn't realize that. I mean, exactly like you said, right? Like, dude, I remember for me it wasn't Xbox, but it was PlayStation, and we're looking at like all these friend groups, online friend groups. Like, I mean, back in our days, because I think we're roughly as the same age. Like, I'm looking at like AIM, AOL Instant Messaging, and we're like in
Yeah,
these groups of like, dude, let's make a group. So like, that's really cool to hear. Uh,
yeah, very retro.
and that just the way I like it. So, I mean, I know your record's pretty good this season. Like, what is it? We're 4-2 right now.
Yeah, 4 and 2 have a pretty good differential. I've got the document here. It is +9, which is pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we take those. So, how are you feeling about your performance so far? And if there's any Mon in particular you want to touch on, or just the way the team feels, feel free to just give me it, hit me with it.
Well, I had a pretty strong start, just like last time. 3 games, one in a row.
Let's go.
Pretty good differentials as well. Then I started losing. First loss, 1-0 loss, can't be mad about that.
Hmm.
Second one, a 3-0 loss, but it was so close. I think my last Mon, Great Tusk, went down to a roll and it otherwise could have swept the rest of the team depending on sets. So it was still really close regardless.
Right.
Then I felt a little bit down, felt a little bit of pressure to try and claw it back, but I got a pretty solid win last week as well. So now we're back up 4-2. And I faced the second seed on Sunday, I believe. I just got to check my spreadsheet real quick.
Yeah, I'm trying
Yeah, I
to.
faced them on
Who is the second seed
uh,
right now?
Swaggy Boy.
Okay, that
I
mammal
faced,
swine is putting a lot of work on his side this season.
yeah. That thing's just stupid to switch into, no matter what team you have. It's one of the best months of draft, to be honest, just because of how difficult it is to switch into, regardless of what team you draft.
Yeah, like that ice ground coverage is like basically impossible to switch into.
Yeah, unless you have a bronze on Roll Road and Wash, you're kind of
I
screwed. But
feel like
even
that's
then,
the
it
answer
can
for
just muscle
everything.
around them. Yeah, like they have to deal with the rest of the team, and the Swain has moves to hit them anyway.
Yep, you got knockoff, you got Stone Edge, you got. I mean, I don't know if
Freeze
I'd ever rely
dry.
on it, but yeah, freeze dry exactly. So you have definitely tools. So I do want to circle back to that game you mentioned where Great Tusk got an unlucky roll. So how have you been liking Great Tusk this season?
Oh, it's super good. I used it in my first bout in speed, I believe, with the team I inherited. I did not know how to use it back then, and it either didn't get used much or it just died immediately. But now, like well over a year later, I know how to use it. It's the draft mon. It is
Hmm.
so customizable. Rapid spin makes it elite just for the speed boost alone. You don't even need to worry about removing hazards. It's just that speed boost.
Right.
Then it has a million coverage moves, the strongest stabs you can ask for. You can make it stronger, faster. There's just so many avenues in which you could take it. And that's not even including Terra. I don't have Terra Tusk, but if you did make it Terra, it would just be terrifying. And I think a lot of people underestimate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're onto something because at least the underestimating part because it was only one extra point to Terra Tusk, if I'm not mistaken, which
Yeah.
definitely raised an eyebrow of mine when I was going through that doc before the draft, and I'm like, oh, huh, that seems like pretty
Yeah.
good value.
If I didn't pick up something like Ogerpon, then I definitely would have Terra Tusk.
Right. So I mean, like, it's actually interesting because like you're absolutely right. Like the rapid spin, especially with its speed tier at +1, it's basically outspeeding everything that's unboosted, which is great. Um, Maybe it's just a team comp thing, but I've noticed because I also have Tusk. I've noticed that I've been using it mostly as just like a come in, trade for something. If you trade for two things, that's great. But like I'm using it like very defensively. So like how and but you say you've been using your Tusk like super versatile. So
Yeah.
like do you think that's a product of the team you have allowing you to do that, or is that just the power of Tusk?
I think it's both. Like I have a very offensive team with some good momentum, so I can bring in Tusk pretty easily.
Hmm.
And it's also a pretty bulky team in general. Like, don't underestimate how bulky Ogerpon is. It's not
True.
the bulkiest, but it can survive a hit if you needed to. And then you got Jirachi, Primarina, Gouging Fire,
Oh
even
yeah, wait.
Kilowattrel can boost up.
That sounds
So
disgusting. Wait.
yeah, I can dedicate some bulk elsewhere if I need it, rather than have to focus Tusk on being bulky. Like if I look at let's have a look at your team for a moment. Yeah, because you got Iron Boulder and Thunderous, which are pretty frail, and
Hmm.
Amorous can't heal.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a case of you can't dedicate your bulk entirely elsewhere. You've got some options like Empoleon and Sinistcha,
Yeah.
but I can understand Tusk having a little bit more pressure.
Yeah. Like I've definitely felt that like kind of strain in team builder. I mean, if you remember that game against Shandy where my Thunderous's Sludge Wave didn't kill Smeoscarada, and then his Sucker Punch didn't kill my Thundurus. That's because I was fully special defensive Thundurus with like no offensive investment. So
Yeah, you had to be because it has ridiculously high offenses. Well, at least special attack. It had to kill unless it was uninvested.
right, and he had a little bit of bulk as well. But like that's the thing. Like I've
Mm,
had because of my team being like pretty offensive and frail, like you said, I've had to kind of find weird weird ways to counter certain problems that I'm facing in the team builder. Uh,
yeah.
but I am kind of forced to just, not forced, but it feels optimal a lot of the time to just go a bulkier tusk set, which kind of sucks because, like you said, the dual stabs, base 120 stabs, is nuts. Uh,
Mm.
but something you did say earlier kind of piqued my interest. So you said like you had tusk and speed as well, and you didn't really know how to use it. So like, how long have you been playing Pokemon for? Because it doesn't sound like a long time based on that answer.
Oh, uh,
Am I wrong?
um, you are very wrong.
Let's
Let's
go.
see.
Okay.
Let's rewind the clock. It
Hmm.
is 2016. My friend decided to make a draft league after being inspired by the GBA. I came in on the second season, I believe, and back then we were doing it on cartridges, mind you. So we were on cartridges, totally breeding our team legitimately, not genning mons every week.
Yep.
And it was a lot of fun. It was mainly a league among friends. We did quite a few seasons together, even into Sun and Moon. We basically did draft as soon as Sun and Moon started.
Okay.
Like we started with Oras, moved on to Sun and Moon. I remember using Magirna in my first league, which is
Wow.
insane to think about these
Yeah.
days. Back then, we didn't really know what was bannable, but
Like,
clearly that was super egregious.
yeah, I didn't even know the draft scene existed back then. So even if it was just a friend
Oh
group thing,
yeah,
so
it started in Oras with places like the GBA. I think there was someone on there who invented the whole thing,
right,
like
that's
after
the
being
YouTube
inspired
league if
by
I'm not
sports.
mistaken, right?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. Can't remember the guy who invented it. It's in the back of my mind somewhere. But anyway,
Yeah.
so moving on to Sun and Moon and Sun and Moon in general, did a few more leagues outside of the friend group. And towards the end of Gen 7, I got a little bit burnt out. So I took a bit of a break. Sometime into Gen 8, this was moving away from cartridges now. I haven't done a league on cartridge since Gen 7.
Right.
Um, but my good old friend Lavs decided to start up his own draft league and invited me to come along, and I accepted. I think we did a couple seasons and an Uber's off season in Gen 8. Then when Gen 9 started up, I messaged one of my other friends, Metal,
Hmm.
who was in Lavs' league, about I think it was Lavs and Metal at the time I was talking to about competing in higher tier leagues like the WPF or the DGBA or whatever.
Right.
And so they gave me a bunch of links. I started sending out applications. Obviously, no one knew who I was, so I didn't really get anywhere. I think the first one I got into was EDC because I had a friend back from the cartridge days who was now a mod there, so they were able to put in a word for me.
That's a pretty
Got in,
small world. Nice.
yeah, it is. So I got into the middle division there and ended up winning that.
Hell yeah.
And And then at the time that was going on, I decided to go all in on the speed tours in the WPF, and I guess the mod team picked up on that, and sooner or later I got an invite to speed after Fate drop, and picking up their team. I think I had a pretty good record. That was the first time me and you fought, I believe.
I believe
I
so,
remember
yeah.
I remember our game vividly because I brought a Toxic Spikes team versus your Iron Valiant
And I
team.
had, oh, dude, that was like the worst season I've ever had. Oh no, the bad first impression. No, but like you identified the weakness in prep, and you like yeah. Well, I can't say anything other than well played. Yeah, I got my ass kicked.
Well, times are changing now. You're at the top of speed now.
Yeah, but you've gone on to graduate to attack, so I just need to meet you there. If you don't go to Psycho Boost yourself, which it looks like you might.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, I think my record there was pretty good. My only losses in speed, like 4 games have already been played. Well, 3 had been played. One was a forfeit, so I got a 2-2 record.
Okay.
Uh,
Was Feed you played Fury, right? If I'm not mistaken, or am I mistaken?
I no, I played
Okay.
Pariah, or I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah,
I'm
me
so
neither, to be
sorry.
honest. So if you're watching this, you'd better tell us how to pronounce this.
But yeah, I played him.
Hmm.
I won. I played Elevated and Harv. I lost against both. Then
Elevated
I
was in
played
speed?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Um.
Wow.
So then I played you, and then I played. I believe it was Floss, and then I beat you and Floss.
Right.
Went on to playoffs. Beat Floss again, and then they left the league. Unfortunate. Then I rematch Elevated, and I managed to win. And
Nice.
then I believe it was George. I'm so bad with
Was it
names.
Joj? Yeah, no, yes, you're right, because
Yeah, it was
he
George in
like
the
snuck
finals.
in the playoffs and he made it all. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I remember they had Terra Volcarona, and basically
Terrifying.
In the elevated and Doge matches, I relied on Galaria Moltres and managed to win.
So do you like? So I take it you like Galarian Moltres as a mon then?
Oh yeah, it's very good. It's super good as a design, and it's very specific to use. It's got paint split now, so I really want to
Oh,
try
it
that out.
does? Because before it
Yeah,
didn't
it
have any
does.
ways to recover, right? Besides rest.
No, yeah, you could use Rest Talk, but now it's got paint split to try and get some health back.
That's kind of interesting because every time you go above and below the 50% threshold, Berserk activates,
You
right?
get Yeah, you get a boost every single time, as
Okay.
long as the opponent hits you down into that range.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's I didn't know it got pain split. That's wild. Wow.
Mm. So yeah, I ended up winning speed, and since then it's just been climbing and climbing, trying to get out of attack, applying to other leagues. Like the PGF happened that summer, did really well there. I've done a bunch of stuff in Smogon recently.
Oh, nice.
Like last year, I got top 32 in Sword and Shield. I got top 16 in Ultra Sun and Moon recently.
Oh, wow,
I
dude.
got top I got top 8 in Ubers earlier this year.
Dude, you are on
So yeah,
top of the world. Wow.
uh, I'm not quite there yet. I got quite a ways to go, and I think people have high expectations of me. So
I'm sure I'm not
I
helping in
want to
that
make a
regard.
name.
Sorry.
No, 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 it's fine. It's fine. I don't feel the pressure.
I'm the
If I
hype
win, I
master
win,
for you.
and
Right.
if I lose, people can like either have a lower opinion of me or not. But I doubt those who know me will ever do that. I felt like people less likely to say like, "Oh, he's bad now," and more like, "Oh, it's just an off day." I feel like people are aware of my skill level now.
Right. And like that's definitely like that kind of ties into I guess what you were saying earlier where like at first you felt a little bit of pressure because like nobody really knew you. I mean, I'm sure there's more reasons, but like part of it is like oh like you weren't like a big name or you weren't a well-known name I should say in specifically WPF with the fantasy and all this stuff. So um
Yeah, I remember after losing to Elevated and Harved back to back, I was feeling like, "Oh, did I get in too deep? Is this really what I want to do?" But I decided, no, I'm going to keep at it, and I didn't lose a single match after that, and it worked out.
yeah, I mean that's the mark of a true champion right there. You don't give up,
Just
you keep pushing forward and you make it to the top.
perseverance.
Perseverance,
Yeah,
exactly. And
like
yeah,
in my most recent bout in TBC Slicks League, I started off 0-2, which was not fun, but I managed to claw it back to a 6-2 third seed.
let's go.
Yeah,
6 in a row to make it to the third seed. That's maybe we take those.
yeah, it was pretty insane.
I mean, like I can kind of imagine because like right now I'm on like a 5 game win streak, but like every week is so stressful, so I can't even imagine pushing that to 6 or even beyond, depending on how you did in the playoffs.
Just gotta figure out your mental state really, and not not try and make it your whole entire focus. Like that sounds
Right.
opposite, but
No, you're right.
if
Yeah.
you're worrying about it too much, you're not going to perform as well as you want to.
I think
Just gotta
that's
balance everything out.
that's kind of what happened to me, I think, with that Valiant team and Speed. I was like so hyper fixated on like, okay, like, because I played a lot of Reggie divisions before that, so I was like so hyper fixated on like, okay, I'm in Speed, I'm in a Deoxys division now, I'm gonna play the dang game and I'm gonna like show everybody that like, okay, I belong in like this tier of like Pokemon players of like
Yeah.
this like mid or mid upper speed and maybe if I get lucky low attack. And then I
Hmm.
demote to defense that season, so go figure. But like,
Oh,
but um, but absolutely, like you said, right? Like I was putting so much pressure on myself that I was like over analyzing every decision that I made, which led me to play worse. Effectively, is what happened there.
yeah.
It's like, oh, like I can like sack like I sacking Valiant here is like probably the play, but then my differential's worse, so I don't want to do that. So there's another avenue or like whatever. So like I kept like going through that rabbit hole, and it was not great. But playing
That's
loose,
something that I
definitely,
think
yeah. Sorry.
that's something that I think a lot of people. I'm sorry to
No, no,
interrupt,
no, no. I was done.
but
You're good.
that's something that I think a lot of people get down about is the differential. Like, I never think about the differential during a game. I just think, right, I've got to win the match. That's more important. I don't care if it's a 1-0 victory. I'll just analyze the differential once the match is done.
Right.
Differential just puts way too much pressure on you. Like, oh, I've not only got to win, I've got to make sure I get a high enough win rate. Oh, like I got to have enough mons left to so and so, and suddenly you're spiraling after that.
Right.
You're trying to make plays to make sure nothing dies, and then all of a sudden everything's on low health and it's just getting completely cleaned up by whatever sweeper they have.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I had to learn as well, where it's like not only from like the mental aspect of it, but also like, okay, so if all my mons are chipped and they have a sweeper, if they click like a boot, like Dragon Dance or Quiver Dance, and I'm just like dead. So like I need to not,
Yeah,
right? Sometimes just sitting in and sacking is the play. And knowing,
yeah,
analyzing the game state, right? And knowing like, okay, like if I don't need this Pokemon anymore, I'm just gonna fire off damage and like, you know, do whatever I can to prevent them from like setting up in my face or whatever,
yeah,
and then
exactly.
yeah, keep my win con healthy and ready when I need it.
Yeah, that's how I like to play. It's less about being defensive and more just about disruption and denial. If I can
Right.
stop my opponent from getting into a groove, then awesome. And if I can keep getting my offensive pieces in, I can back them into a corner to where they're forced to give up part of their team.
I'm of the same mind there, so that's good. So
Hmm.
I do want to ask, um, maybe kind of a standard question, but um, is if you can you tell me one mon that has, in general, not just this season, but in general, has like overperformed your expectations and one that is like kind of like underperformed or has been underwhelming compared to your expectations?
I think the overperform, I believe it's Ogerpon for sure.
Like
Like just
which?
regular
Okay.
Ogerpon. Terra Ogerpon. I'm using it here and I'm using it in the PGP 500 right now. And I've seen it used a lot. It's super good. Like, there's so much you can say about it. Sure, it doesn't have the mask boost, and sure, it's only a grass type, but man, is it one of the best offensive grass types out there. I think Terra
Hmm.
Ogerpon is slightly better than Meowscarada, depending on what you want, because Ogerpon can just set up, get the speed boost, and potentially win depending on how chipped the opponent is or how much coverage it has. Meowscarada is really good at just spreading loads of damage throughout a game, but
Yeah.
Ogerpon, it can do so much, and that's not even including its support move pool. It's got Leech Seed, it's got Taunt, Encore, Spiky Shield, Spikes, U-Turn, Knockoff. Like, that's so much to work with. That's not even including the coverage options like Low Kick, Superpower, Play Rough,
Right.
Rock Tomb to hit stuff like Talonflame, which try and get a sneaky switch in. It's got so much going for it, and its Grass Stab is so strong after Terrating. And it's also great for forcing a lot of teams to run choice scarfers. Like if there's a Meowscarada on the other team, that's my most likely choice scarf. Same
That's
with Iron
true,
Bundle,
bro.
that's mostly choice scarf. I can use that to my advantage. They're locked into moves and not doing choice band damage, so I can just go from there. It's really good at forcing certain scenarios and just so good at either finishing off games or spreading loads of damage.
That's so, just so I'm on the same page as you. So like even like post DLC, I guess, well, we've been post DLC for a while, but like even like triple axle Meowscarada, you'd say Ogerpon is better. Terra Ogerpon specifically.
I Yeah, Terra Ogerpon specifically, yes. It can just Terra, get up a source stance, and potentially win the game on the spot,
That's
depending on the
true.
game state. But even then, you can just slap boots on it or even choice band and just spam attacks all game until it's time to clean up. Like
That is true.
I think if Meowscarada got source stance, it might be better, but then it wouldn't be getting protean boosts on everything. So it
Right.
depends.
Yeah.
It does get home calls though, and I haven't really seen that used, so maybe.
Never miss a
Who
triple
knows?
axle again with this one trick.
Oh god, maybe I should use that. I keep missing that damn move.
Yeah, no, I feel bad because like yeah, it seems like a lot of people are in WPF have not the greatest triple axle luck. So I know I'd be
I
terrified to
have
click
it.
that move.
I have it elsewhere as well in TBC. I think I've missed it a lot in The Draft League World Cup for Smogon, I lost 2 games because of triple axel specifically. It was not a fun time.
Losing not one but two games to Axel specifically. That's
Yeah.
that's bad. That's unfortunate.
Sp Like, there are other factors going on, but specifically, the loss of the game was contributed thanks to triple axel missing.
Right. That's pretty brutal, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it really is. As for Mon performing the least, uh, well, I could just say the boring answer and the Mons I don't bring, but I don't
True.
know.
I mean, I'd still be down to
Um,
hear that.
uh, nah, I think that's just the boring answer. Every Mon has its place, even if I don't bring them. They're just there to cover a certain hole in team building that an opponent has to prepare for, or maybe there's a hole on the opponent's team I can exploit.
Right.
But I'm not really sure there's a weakest member of the team. I think there is one gripe actually in team building. That's Jirachi. Not that it's a bad Pokemon, but I really dislike how it has no option to boost its speed whatsoever. It's hard to use blunder policy on it because its least accurate move is like Thunder, which isn't even that bad. It's
Right.
not got Trailblaze. It's not got agility. Like, I think if Jirachi had some option to boost its speed, it would be so much better because then it enables all sorts of stored power sets,
Yeah.
sweeping sets. But
Without having to
no,
rely on
it
Scarf. Yeah.
yeah, but it's stuck at 100, and that can be annoying. So I have to get quite creative with it. So like Meteor Beam, Doom Desire, or all physical, trying to fish for Meteor Mash boosts, which I don't get, even though it's 40%. But
Yeah,
we
I
don't talk
remember
about that.
watching like that a couple weeks ago. I think you had a match where you
Yeah,
clicked Meteor Mash like 5 or 6 times and you did not get a single.
yeah, it was ridiculous. I think it was more like 3 times, but I hit them all and didn't get any boosts, and I got effect spored. So that was fun.
Statistically unlikely. This is tragic.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my one gripe, I think. I think the team overall is solid. I wasn't so sure about it in the first place, but it seems like a lot of people either really like the team or are terrified prepping for it. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. Usually I consider actually drafting the team to be my weakest part of Draft League,
Same.
but I feel like this is one of my strongest ones yet. Even if the bottom half seems all over the place, the top six just work so well together.
I mean, when is the bottom half never not that? To be honest, it's always like trying to
Yeah,
pick up the pieces with whatever's left on the
yeah,
board. Um,
absolutely.
I I do remember, and I'm pulling up your team now. I do remember thinking because we both like had Tusk drafts at the beginning, so I was like kind of following your draft a lot to see if I can kind of like mirror. You are the better
Yeah.
player, so I was like, okay, and I suck at drafting, so I'm like, okay, how am I gonna like kind of mirror your draft here to see if I can get any advantages? And I noticed you went very heavy with your first three picks, um,
Mm,
very heavy physical stats.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but you did turn around nicely with Primarina and Jirachi and Kilowattrel, I guess. But like I don't know, I've seen your Kilowattrel put in a lot of work actually, so I can't even like diss it that much.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. It's basically Zapdos if it were a little bit faster, a little bit weaker, but it's got some traits that even Zapdos wants, like the Volt Absorb mainly
True.
is very good for it. And even competitive can be good sometimes if you play it right.
In certain matchups with like Intimidate Mons and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, or if you bait in a defog.
True, yeah, that's true. But like, have you felt that like your top three options being pretty much physically locked into physical sets, have you felt that as like a problem during team building? Like,
No.
okay,
I don't think that's a problem. I've got other mons that can use special attacks, and even then, sometimes just going all in on one category of moves isn't such a bad thing. It depends on what defensive options the opponent has. And it's also not like their physical options aren't working well together. So like Fire Dragon is awesome on its own.
that's true.
You've got Ogerpon spamming grass attacks. that may try and take on the Gadget Fire, like the Water Fairies or the Rock Fairies that might resist those. Ogerpon can hit those. Great Tusk has loads of powerful options as well. And yeah, the top two are kind of weak against flying types. And then I got Jirachi and Kilowatt Trolls can switch into those. And Gouge and Fire can switch into physical ones and try and heal it off. They all just work really well together.
That's okay. So you've kind of opened my eyes a little bit actually. So thank you for this.
Very welcome.
Because I'm always trying to like learn and like understand better like what more experienced, better players kind of value in their drafts and their mons and stuff. So what I'm gathering here is that physical special offense that doesn't matter as much as like type super effectiveness synergy as far as your offenses go. Am I correct in
Yeah,
that? Okay.
yeah, again, it depends on what the opponent's defensive options has. So, like, it's no point having a bunch of physical attackers if you don't have one that can hit, say, a Skarmory for a good amount of damage or lure it in and kill it. You
True.
need a bunch of physical or special attackers that can take out the standard physical or special walls that would otherwise give them trouble. So, like, if you have special attackers, you may want something like a Keldeo or a Psyshock user to take care of Blissey, etc. Or something to take on Assault Vest users. So, like, maybe something that has knockoff, it can spam that during game, and then it enables all the rest of the special attackers to go crazy. As long as you got ways to get around the standard switch-ins to physical and special moves, it's
Hmm.
not necessarily a bad thing if you stack them together.
Okay. I feel like I can subscribe to that for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. It's
Like,
like
yeah.
type stacking. Like if you have a bunch of water type Pokemon on a draft and you just spam loads of water moves to overwhelm each other's checks, think of it like heavy physical offense. There are a bunch of teams that are built around that, or heavy special offense in standard competitive play like OU and such. You can do the
True.
same thing in draft. It's just slightly more limiting because you only have so many mons you can draft, but you could definitely go that route if you want to.
So, when you say OU, you mean like laddering, right? Not like tournaments or anything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah, laddering and tournaments. It depends, really. You got those kinds of team styles in both of those formats.
I do want to pick your brain a little bit then, because I remember, oh God, was it Gen 7, 6, 8? I don't remember, but wasn't bird spam like an archetype that was used quite a bit in like
Yes,
Gen
yes. It was
set
like this.
6, 7?
It
Do you
was
remember?
it was the second half of Gen 6. It was a
Okay.
particular bird spam team. I remember Azelf was there to set rocks and screens.
Oh yes, the
You
self
had
the
Mega
bird.
Pin.
I love it.
Yeah, you had Mega Pinsir spamming aerial late moves.
Right.
You had Staraptor spamming Choice Band or Choice Scarf moves, and then you had Talonflame, which was super busted.
Pre-Gale
Those
Wings
were the
nerf, right? Yeah.
Yeah, those were the core bird spam mons. It was in the latter half of Gen 6.
Okay, thank you for filling in my knowledge gap there. So
No worries.
I do want to ask you then because I'm not sure where I actually like what I think about this, but because I'm thinking like, okay, so in draft, like if I stack up on a lot of like Pokemon of a singular type, like using your example, a bunch of water types, right? And just use that as like a water type assault team strategy. Because my opponent, maybe their draft doesn't have the best things to, aren't like fully equipped to like handle that, but because they see my team and because they have time to prepare like specific EVs, IVs, counters, moves, whatever, to my Pokemon before the match starts and it's not like a ladder environment, do you think that makes that kind of play style like worse inherently, or do you not think so? Does that make
Um,
sense? I guess I kind of rambled
uh,
for a bit there, but
yeah, no, it makes sense. If your opponent has the foresight to see that you have multiple mons of a similar archetype, such as a bunch of water types or a bunch of physical attackers, then they can try and better off prepare for it.
right.
But
Because
it's like I said, if you go on.
no, no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go
No
for it.
worries. It's like I said, if you have ways to get around the kind of prep that they might instill, then you should be good. So, like, if they see a bunch of your water types are special attackers, again, I said with the knocking off their assault vest, or you can try and install some sort of disruption in there. You don't necessarily have to go guns blazing offense all the time. Like, say your water types have some disruption, like Primarina has Psychic Voice, for example. Maybe I could make that a water type Psychic Voice and hit more Pokemon and also just stop them from healing. So, like, if they have a Milotic to come in and take a bunch of water attacks, I could Psychic Voice that, switch out to something else, and
Hmm.
then that's taking damage that's sticking there the next time it comes into Primarina, and maybe it's in range of 2 Moonblasts. Who knows? But it's also making use of the Pokemon's other traits. So you can have a bunch of water types, but you don't want a bunch of water types that do the same thing.
Right.
So if I have a Primarina and an Azumarill, that might be pretty bad. They're both water fairies, and yes, they're physical and special, but you could get a Vileplume and you can wall both of them pretty easily.
True, actually,
Um,
yeah.
but if you have water types with different traits, so like you have a Rotom Wash, and you have what's another example?
Like if you want an offensive leaning one, you could go with like a Barraskewda or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like that's that's another way to do it. If you have a Rotom Wash and a Barraskewda, that could be water offense, but they also have another crucial trait in momentum. They could do flip, turn, and volt switch all the time.
True,
Like
actually,
it's
huh?
not like the type stacking is not just about I'm going to click water moves forever. It's about making use of their independent traits that also happen to both click water moves. Like they could both eventually do that, but it's about making use of your team's diversity to do so. I don't know if that made any
No,
sense.
no, no. That
That's
makes
what
perfect
rambled.
sense. Basically, like type is important, but it's not so important as to override the Mon's individual inherent traits, right? And we should be using those to our advantage when we prep, just as our opponent can do the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think that's a major pitfall in draft in general. People always try and go the basis of right, I need these types. I need this type on my draft and I need to resist all of these certain things. No, the more important thing is roles and resistances.
Okay.
Like you can I've had a plenty of drafts where like I don't have a fairy and yeah, it could be bad if I go up against a dragon type, but as long as I got a powerful steel and maybe even a potential option to tear into a fairy, maybe I could even go double steel, then I can deal with dragon types just fine. But it's also just having the roles to do whatever you want. So like it's no good having just one stealth rocker most of the time. Like I got Great Tusk and Jirachi that can both stealth rock.
Right.
I've got Ogerpon to set spikes as well. I can spread across those roles if I need to. So like if Jirachi's better in the game than Great Tusk, I can delegate Great Tusk to setting rocks and have Jirachi do something else, and vice versa.
Hmm.
It's all about having those roles spread across as many different Pokemon as possible.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. I guess, can you give me like an example of like some roles that you would say are like kind of not necessarily mandatory, but like if you want to build a good team, you should have like at least these like I don't know, three or
so,
five roles.
so obviously you need your hazard setters,
Okay.
because if you don't have your hazard setters, your opponents can just opt to not run boots and they have more powerful offensive items. Whereas if you have powerful hazard setters, they may need to consider their Pokemon's longevity over doing loads of damage. That can help offset the damage your team sustains.
Right.
On the on the other hand, you'll want a spinner or defogger. Even if you don't bring it to every game, you at least want it to prevent your opponent from either Harrodsword stacking you or forcing you to run mono boots, because then your damage output in comparison is low, or your team is just getting destroyed by all the spikes and rocks damage it's taking every turn.
Right.
So hazards and removal are definitely important.
Okay.
Another one is definitely pivoting. You want you want to try and create a game that flows pretty nicely, and pivoting is definitely the way to go in that regard. Grabbing loads of momentum, getting your powerful threats in. It helps offset the damage. It keeps your opponent switching. It's definitely a big one in my opinion. I don't like teams that don't have the option to pivot. Sometimes I won't put pivoting moves on my mons because I can't fit them, but having the option is always really nice.
For
Like
sure.
four out of my 4 out of my top 6 can pivot. I can delegate those where I want.
So is that kind
Um,
of the baseline you usually go for, like four out of your top six? Generally, you would like to have with pivoting moves?
I don't really have a baseline, but I like to have like one or two at least
Okay.
being able to pivot. Sometimes I accidentally create teams where I don't have any pivoters, and it
I
really drives me insane.
could definitely see that. Sorry for interrupting you though, mid-sentence.
No, it's okay. And then after that, you want to delegate damage dealers. You want obviously your wall breakers, you want your cleaners, you want your sweepers.
Hmm.
Ideally, you want Pokemon that can switch between those. So like I think the top three of mine are a great example. Great Tusk can be a damage spreader, but also with its booster energy bulk up set, it can be a sweeper.
Right.
With Ogerpon, it's the same. It can run Choice Band, but it can also just Terra, Swords Dance, and win the game. Gouging Fire can be a defensive threat. It can just spread loads of damage with Dragon Tail, or it could click DD and just win the game on the spot. It depends on the team structure and the opponent. I see why my opponents pull their hair in prepping for it because they don't know which of those is going to just pop off and sweep and which of those are just going to spread loads of damage. It's really, and it's not something that you can just see from the team builder either. You just got to play it out.
So versatility is very important to you then, is what I'm hearing.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. You can have mons that are really good at one single thing, but it has to be a really good single thing to be justifiable, especially if it's high points. Otherwise, I wouldn't really say it's worth it. You want stuff that can do as many different things as possible, keep your opponent on their toes, really pull their hair out in the builder, really make them suffer.
I like that. Well, at least to a certain extent. So can you give me an example of like a mon that you'd say doesn't, like a top tier that doesn't offer that versatility that you wouldn't consider drafting?
Let's have a look at the board quickly.
Because like, I guess a better
Uh,
question is like, I'm wondering like, okay, so for example, I don't know, like Chi like it can scarf specs, blunder policy, inferno. Is that enough versatility for you? Uh,
I do like
nitro charge.
Chi. It has enough versatility to get by. Like it can run choice items really well, but it'll get worn down really quickly.
Right.
It can run boots and spread loads of damage, but it's also just really strictly an offensive mon. It can take a special attack, sure, but it's basically contributing nothing to a team's defensively, and
That's
so it
true.
falls flat on its face in that regard, and why it may often not get drafted.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
think that's a good example. Um, I think something like, hmm. Sorry, I'm just looking at the board right now to
No,
try
you're
and
good.
pull a good example.
Because I'm like definitely like personally curious about this as well. Because I love versatility as well, but I'm not as good as identifying. Like,
Yeah, I have a really open mind, so I can see sort of versatility in so many different mons. I think
yeah,
something like, let's say Walking Wake, that's a pretty specific mon. It's got just enough versatility. It's got knockoff, it's got flip turn. If you really want to flip a matchup on its head, it's got Dragon Dance. But mainly, it's going to be clicking special moves, preferably in the sun.
right.
You're not really going to see it much outside of a rain team. Maybe you will as like a bulky water type that can pivot and spread lots of damage. But if you're not using it on a Sun team, you're not really using it to its full
Yeah, like at
potential.
the price that it's at, doesn't seem worth.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be better as a standalone Mon, like maybe one or two lower, because it's not like it can boost its special attack outside of Photosynthesis, and its
Right.
Water Stab of Hydro Steam is only 80 unless it's in the sun. So it can be wanting for powers. Usually it's not, but it can be if it's locked into that Water Stab unless it runs Hydro Pump. But yeah, that I feel like that's just one example I can pick off right there. Is like not as versatile as it could be
Mm.
on its own. But like I said, I usually look at something I can think of lots of different ways to run it. So I'm not sure I'm the best to point those out.
No, I mean, I think that was actually very helpful for me because, and hopefully for a lot of people watching at home, because like to me, like my first impression of Walking Wake would be more versatile than like Chiyu. Um, which now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if that's actually true. Like,
I'd actually think Chiyu's more versatile in it because it can boost its speed. Like, I guess Walking Way can do that as well with Dragon Dance, but Flame Charge is also doing damage.
True.
And then it can nasty plot. It has Psychic as well that can be sometimes useful. And Ruination also is actually more is actually better than you think. And I believe it also gets Taunt. So even in
I
situations where it's
think
like up
so.
against a
Yeah.
whereas in situations where it's up like against a Blissey, it can taunt it, it can Ruination and then force it out, and then it's spreading damage to the rest of the team.
Huge, actually. Yeah, because you can like basically bait in like a special wall and like mess with them, pretty much.
Yeah. Whilst Walking Wake, it's mainly just flip turning and knocking off if it isn't doing damage.
Okay, so sorry, I'm like I guess thinking out loud here, but I'm trying to like put my thoughts together. So it's like even if the Mon is still doing like the same generic general like role of like okay, so Chiyu's still doing some mostly offensive things, but it's still able to have that unique utility of taunting a defensive threat or boosting its speed with Flame Charge or Inferno, Blunder Palsy or whatever. Whereas Wake really only has its versatility through protosynthesis stat boosting if you do some crazy things with that. Um,
Yeah, it's more of a specialized versatility, and you're not getting much out of it if you're not leaning into that.
that's yeah, that's fair honestly, because like I guess just to like get confirmation, so like let's say like Urshifu, either form, um, would you say that like SD sets, choice sets, trailblaze sets, bulk up drain punch sets, would you say those are all different enough to dub Urshifu as like a versatile mon?
Yeah, I'd say so. It all depends on the game state. So, like, if you're using Urshifu to just spam attacks because the opponent has no way to switch into them, they can absolutely just go choice band. But
Right.
if the opponent has, say, a bunch of physical mons that can't strike Urshifu with super effective damage, you can then go bulk up Drain Punch, and suddenly your opponent can't take it down. But also, if your opponent just gets completely rolled over by Urshifu when it's taken loads of damage, you could run Trailblaze and then just finish them all off. It's got so many avenues in which it can throw out its offense, whether it's sweeping, breaking, or a slow setup where it just rolls over the opponent.
I think I finally grasped it, so thank you. And everybody at home, thank Lime later.
You're
Absolute
very
goat stuff.
welcome.
Cause no, but like, I now that I'm like thinking about it, like yeah, like what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. Um, I don't know why I've like never thought about it like that before. Cause like I'm always like in my mind like, oh, Urshifu does like one thing and it like clicks buttons. Chiyu does one thing and it clicks but sorry, one thing I guess the best. But that's not even necessarily true because it depends on the team, right? And like you said before, we should be using our mons,
Yeah, like
inherent traits.
you can think of it this way. Chiyu does one thing, it puts out loads of damage. However, it can do that one thing in multiple different ways.
Right.
It could nasty plot, it can choice specs, it can do taunt ruination if it needs to muscle past a special wall which otherwise can't do much to it. There's many ways for it to spread its massive amounts of damage, the one thing it does well. You won't be asking it to take hits for you, but that's perfectly fine. You got your team to do that.
Whereas Wake obviously just clicks a special move 99% of the time.
Yeah,
In some
unless it's
preferably.
knocking off items or flip turning.
Yeah. I would kill to see a Dragon Dance set pop off one day, but today is probably
That'd
not
be a
that
challenge.
day. Challenge accepted. Nice. But no, no, I mean like so I guess that generally falls under like draft team building advice slash whatever umbrella you want to fit that under. Because like that was going to be one of my questions, but I think we covered that pretty nicely with that explanation. Unless there's anything you wanted to add,
Nothing off the top of my mind, really.
because this has been very educational for me as well. So
Well,
well,
I'm glad to hear it.
I hope it's been fun for you though. So I feel like I'm just like solely benefiting from this. Like,
No, no, it's fine. I like talking about my thought process, and if people can understand, then that's even better because that makes me feel good about my thought processes. Like it means that it means that I'm onto something
I
here.
mean, I think you
Other
are.
people
Yeah.
other people could see what I'm getting at, and they can apply it as well, and maybe they'll get success from it.
I mean, I'm definitely gonna try to apply some of the things that I've learned today. 'Cause like
Well, because
I've learned, and even in the first course interview we had, like there were some things that opened my eyes as well. So like it's always fun to just hear what other people's thought processes are, and if that gives, if the side effect of that is giving people who enjoy talking about their thought processes space to do that, then hey, it's a win-win. So,
hmm, considering you're undefeated right now, you'll
well,
just blitz into attack in no time.
I hope so, and then I'll be coming for you if you don't promote, but I think you will promote. I have faith in you.
Uh,
No pressure. Sorry. Let's put it this way.
no
I
worries.
want you to promote. I'm rooting for you. How about that?
You want me to promote so you don't have me beating you down.
No, no. I want my rematch. I'll probably lose,
That's
but I want
fair,
my
that's fair.
rematch.
No worries, I will see you then.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I sure hope so. Whenever that day comes, it'll come. I'll be coming.
Mm,
I'll
awesome.
double promote. Easy clap. Um,
Easy.
So I mean, yeah, it has been roughly 50 minutes, so we could start wrapping this up. So I don't know if you had any like final thoughts you wanted to share, or if there's anything that you haven't said yet that we haven't touched on that you want to mention.
There's nothing
Now's the
really
time.
that comes to mind. I sort of just came into this with an open mind, like I'll answer your questions. I don't know if there was really anything I wanted to say in particular.
Right.
I'm not exactly a person who goes out speaking a lot, so this was a good way to sort of break that mold.
Well, I'm glad I could help with that. I mean, and like kind of I'm sure it's probably pretty apparent, but like I'm not very experienced doing these kind of things. Like this is only my second time, like not only like in like the WPF space, but like I'm not like a meeting leader or anything like that. So like um I'm not the greatest at like making conversations flow, but hey, I hope you had a good time and I hope it was fun
Oh, of
to come
course.
and chat. Hell yeah.
Yeah, this felt really natural. The conversation flowed really well. I very much enjoyed it.
I'm glad to hear it, and I enjoyed it as well. Like I'm really happy that a lot of people a lot of the community wanted to see this kind of content, and a lot of interest was, what's the right word? A lot of we got a lot of interest for participants wanting to do this, and I hope that these videos, when they eventually come out, um, will further kind of boost that because it is a lot of fun, and I'm glad to hear it's mutual. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think this will be something that pops off.
let's go, just like both of us are right now.
Yeah.
Let's go, season 16. We're gonna end it on a good note. I will see you in playoffs, in our respective playoffs, my guy.
There is one more thing I'd like to add,
Oh
actually, now
sure.
that I thought about it. If anyone has any questions about advice or Draft League, feel free to message me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. My DMs are open.
I love to hear that. I might actually hit you up on that, but if for everybody watching at home, there, that is your
No
official
worries.
green light to talk to the green man and have a green jolly good time.
Hell yeah. Green vibes only.
Only green vibes. If you're now I have to ask. So who was the deranged fruit clan leader? What fruit are we talking? Who was the leader?
I can't remember. It's been too long. All I know is that I think there was an orange, there was an apple. I can't remember much beyond that. It's been too long. I'm so
No,
sorry.
you're good. Don't need to apologize. I was gonna make a silly joke outro of like, no, green vibes only, but if you bring insert fruits color vibe here, then
Oh yeah, lemons. Lemons are my mortal enemy.
oh, I can't believe it was right in front of me this whole time and I didn't take it.
It's
It's
like Green
literally right
Lantern.
there.
He's weak to the color yellow.
Why can't we all coexist like Sprite? Shame, tragic.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, hey, sometimes what is that? Where there's light, there's shadow. So
Always.
we have to coexist. But yes, please bring lime vibes only when you hit up lime. But hey, no, but like once again, thanks so much for hopping on and agreeing to do this. It was a blast, and I hope that we can, maybe do something like this again in the future. Whether or not it's an interview or something else. Like one thing I wanted to kind of do in the future was like get some like experts in like specific tiers and stuff and have them kind of like hold like a workshop of sorts of like, oh, here's like a primer on Ubers or here's a primer on Little Cup or whatever. So like I'm thinking you're my ORAS or ORAS guy. Sounds like you're pretty
Maybe more
experienced
to
in that.
I have more experience in Ultra Sun and Moon. I think I need a bit more practice in Oras when it comes to draft. But yeah, absolutely. If you want to hit me up, I'd be down for it.
I mean, that's probably a next season thing, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, and obviously, like, just because I'm saying it now, don't feel pressured to accept that or anything.
No,
Um,
of course.
but yeah, like that would be cool. So, because I'd love to have the chance to chat again about mons, because it's always fun.
Yeah, of course. If you're not having fun, then what's the point?
Exactly. Look at that. We've come full circle. If you're not having fun playing draft, talking about mons, then why are you here? What are we doing with our lives? But yeah, on that happy note, God, that's gonna be a terrible outro, isn't it? Okay, so okay, so thanks so much for watching, and once again, big shout out to Lime for hopping on, taking time out of his morning to chat with me, and we hope you all enjoy. So see you later, alligators, because that's a green animal.
Bye.
Bye.